What's up, everybody? Welcome back to Texan Collection Odyssey, the media collection update for the past 2 months this time. And we're going to get started off with some books. And if you don't like that, then that's just like your opinion, man. So, we're starting off with The Big Lebowski, an illustrated annotated history of the greatest cult film of all time. This is basically one of those comprehensive oral histories, and The Big Lebowski is one of my favorite movies of all time. It's definitely in my top 10, top 5 movies. And this is a really good book. I really enjoy these. I have one of these for Back to the Future. I've read it cover to cover, enjoyed it a lot. And I'm about on the 4th or 5th chapter of this, and I'm having a really good time reading it. And I love the cover here. It's got the bowling ball, and then as you turn it, it changes. So it's got the White Russian, the marmot, the Viking helmet from the dream sequence, and the cut-off severed toe. And really awesome to get this book. And another cool book is this, The Big Book of B Movies. So this is a book from, I think, 1981. And it's basically just a giant resource on B movies. You know, lower budget movies, starting from the time that movies were made in Hollywood, all the way up to, I imagine, the 70s. And it's just a giant resource. It's got tons of pictures, tons of explanation on, what B movies are, the history of them. And it's basically, for someone who is really into finding these movies, it's a huge help, a reference guide of finding movies that I never otherwise would have found out about. So I'm really looking forward to using this as a pretty cool resource for finding new, weird stuff. Relating to the old movies, but it's not a movie, is a book, Captain Blood by Raphael Sabatini. And this book was the inspiration for the Errol Flynn movie, Captain Blood. I found this at an estate sale, and pretty old edition here, and I just thought it was a cool find, cool pickup. Alright, switching over to some music. I picked up a good set of a trilogy, if you will, of 90s country. There's David Lee Murphy, Out with a Bang. This has a Party Crowd on there, one of my favorite songs of his. Joe Diffie, Third Rock from the Sun. And Greatest Hits, Steve Wariner. And besides that, I got a Asleep at the Wheel CD. As y'all know, I love Asleep at the Wheel. I love their Texas swing music. It's them guesting with several other artists. And Ride with Bob, a tribute to Bob Wills and the Texas Playboys. And lastly, for music, I have one vinyl record this time. It is the soundtrack to Every Which Way But Loose. This is the comedy Clint Eastwood with a monkey movie. And I actually like this movie a lot, just because of how weird it is. Title track sung by Eddie Rabbitt. And just a cool find. I like movie soundtracks, especially ones for this that aren't necessarily hard to find, but they're kind of more, niche interest. All right, going over to some TV, but before we get to DVD and Blu-ray, I have one VHS, surprisingly. It is Young Indiana Jones, Treasure of the Peacock's Eye. You can get this on DVD. This was a whole series made after The Last Crusade, basically following a young Indiana Jones going on adventures in the early 20th century. And this is supposedly one of the better episodes, so I kind of wanted to watch this and, gauge on whether maybe I would want to look into getting the rest of the series. Pretty cheap at a garage sale for a VHS. Cool find. I like Indiana Jones a lot. Some more TV. Also a garage sale find was Workaholics Season 3 on Blu-ray. And I'm not sure exactly why I got this. It's That's So Sweet Life of Hannah Montana. I watched all these shows back in the day. I watched this live back in the day on Disney Channel. And it was like $1 or something, so I figured why not, just for fun. And really excited about these. This is Volume 1 and Volume 2 of Star Wars Clone Wars. This is the 2003-2004 series that was meant to bridge Attack of the Clones and Revenge of the Sith. I had never watched this. I didn't watch this when it was on Cartoon Network between the two movies around that time. I have watched the 3D Clone Wars, the canon Clone Wars, and I really enjoyed them, so I decided to take a look at these. I'd actually been interested in them in a long time, and I was given these as a gift by a friend who knew, I loved collecting stuff, and I loved especially, kind of the more fringe Star Wars stuff. So special thanks to them. Shout out to them. All right, moving on to some movies on DVD. There is a combo pack here of Space Camp and War Games. I had never seen either of these movies, but I knew they have kind of a good reputation as kind of, a little bit of cheese, a little bit of actually a good movie from the 80s. I watched War Games, and I really, really liked it. I want to get it on Blu-ray for sure. I haven't watched Space Camp yet, but I'm excited to. It actually has an interesting cast with Kate Capshaw. She was in Temple of Doom, and Leah Thompson. She was Marty's mom in Back to the Future. And War Games stars Matthew Broderick and Ali Sheedy from The Breakfast Club. So yeah, pretty cool find, a good excuse. I get stuff like these combos on DVD sometimes just to try out movies, see if I would like to own them, and then now I know, I'd like to get War Games on Blu-ray. Another example of that, I saw this, Born in East L.A., Cheech Marin. I'd never really heard of it until I saw one of the kind of boutique labels. I forget exactly who it was, if it was Shout or somewhere else, putting out a special edition Blu-ray of this. And I thought, I might be interested in getting that. I like the first Cheech and Chong movie. I've seen that. And yeah, I wanted to check this one out. So good excuse to get it, for cheap on DVD. Something else I haven't seen but would like to is Bonnie and Clyde. Besides just it being a good movie, it also was, the soundtrack was created by Flatt and Scruggs, a very prominent bluegrass band who I really enjoy, so I find that a cool connection between country music and this movie. But yeah, this is like the special edition set or something, sealed, and I got it for pretty cheap, so I figured, why not get this, try it out, and besides, pretty cool edition, to be honest. And with it sealed, I know there should be everything in there. All right, Encino Man. Yeah, kind of a weird starring lineup for the era that it was in. Brendan Fraser, Pauly Shore, and Sean Astin all together. And Brendan Fraser is the aforementioned Encino Man, a caveman that is thawed out by these teenage kids. And it's actually a pretty funny movie. It holds up pretty well, honestly, unlike some other movies from this time, especially unlike some other Pauly Shore movies. All right, in the same vein of that, sort of, is Cant Buy Me Love. And I really like this movie. I watched it on Netflix when it was on there. And it's honestly probably one of my favorite, 80s era romantic comedies. Yeah, it stars Patrick Dempsey, and I think one of his first movies, actually. And it also has Seth Green as a little kid, which is really, really funny. Cool to get that, even though, unfortunately, it's in, 4:3 ratio. That's the only way it's ever come out on DVD. So maybe one day, Disney Buena Vista can get it out on Blu-ray through a Disney Movie Club or something like that. I got one of these 10 movie Western packs. Normally I kind of ignore these. They're kind of full of junk, typically. But this had some interesting stuff on it. It had the 2 Over the Hill Gang movies, Yuma. Most importantly, though, it had Once Upon a Texas Train, which was a Willie Nelson and Company movie. And I love all those, like Redhead to Stranger, Songwriter. So glad to get this pickup. This was an interesting find here. This is Creepy Cowboys 4 Weird Westerns. So it has 4 movies on here. This is what they are. Tombstone Canyon, 1932. Vanishing Riders, 35. Wild Horse Phantom, 44. And The Rawhide Terror, 34. So yeah, it was one of those interesting compilations of stuff. I watched Tombstone Canyon. That was actually pretty good. It has a creepy, phantom figure who makes a weird howling noise, And Wild Horse Phantom actually starred Buster Crabbe, who was Flash Gordon. So, yeah, this is the type of stuff that would be in that big book of V movies, so might have to cross-reference it, see if any of these are in there. Alright, moving on to some Blu-rays. I found Get Smart at a Goodwill for like $1 or something like that. I love this movie. I saw this in the theater when it first came out, and it was one of the best, comedic theater experiences I ever had. It was so hilarious. And I didn't know anything about the old show. All I knew is it had Steve Carell in it, and I love Steve Carell. So I went and saw it, and we had it on DVD for a long time, but glad to find it on Blu-ray. I got this. It is a Mill Creek combo of the Sun, Sand, and Sweat collection. And it has Private Resort, starring Johnny Depp, Hard Bodies, Perfect, and Spring Break. So these are all kind of R-rated, raunchy comedies. Shout outs to Cyril at Midnight. I saw that he picked this up, kind of turned me on to a lot of the Mill Creek Blu-ray releases. So I saw this in Half Price Books and wanted to pick it up. I had a good coupon that day. So thanks to him. All right, and some more Half Price Books pickups. I found this. It is Chevy Chase movies. It is Funny Farm and Spies Like Us. Spies Like Us is one of my favorite movies. It's inspired by the Road to movies of Bob Hope and Bing Crosby, but it's got Dan Aykroyd and Chevy Chase. And glad to get these on Blu-ray. Another 80s classic on Blu-ray here is Cannonball Run. Burt Reynolds, Dom DeLuise, and a whole other cast of characters. And this actually was the first movie to include the bloopers and outtakes over the credits. And it was because of this was one of Jackie Chan's first movies in America. He saw this, loved it, so that's why all the Rush Hour movies and almost every other Jackie Chan movie has all the bloopers and outtakes over the credits. So kind of an interesting fun fact there. And speaking of which, Jackie Chan, Shanghai Noon, and Shanghai Nights. I love these movies. I love the combination between the martial arts comedy with the western and the action and everything. Shanghai Nights, not really as good as Shanghai Noon, but they're both worth watching. There's a rumor that there's a third movie coming along, but that's been around for like 5 years or more. So we'll see. I'm kind of hoping for it. See if it's good. I know Rush Hour 3 didn't turn out quite as good as the other two, but any more Shanghai movies they make, I will definitely be on board. All right, The Men Who Stare at Goats. This is a very interesting movie. I didn't actually know anything about remote viewing before I saw this movie, but it has George Clooney, Jeff Bridges, Ewan McGregor, Kevin Spacey, and the Goat. And yeah, kind of a movie about what the weird paranormal research the U.S. military was looking into in the 70s and 80s and 90s, based loosely on some of the actual reports of what happened during this time. Really funny, really weird. Very good example of a movie I like. Master and Commander: The Far Side of the World. I've heard that this is probably one of the last big epic movies ever made in Hollywood, before we transition kind of into the type of movies we have today, basically. Russell Crowe as the captain of a ship. It was meant to be, the start of a long series because it's based on a series of books. But I don't think the movie bombed or anything, but it was just expensive to make, and not really many people went out and saw it. But now in kind of the Blu-ray, on home video market, it's kind of grown to be kind of a cult classic, if you will, among people who like these, epic period piece movies. And definitely a good one I would recommend. And lastly, I have my first Steelbook, courtesy of Big Lots. So it's Lock, Stock, and Two Smoking Barrels. This was a blind buy, but I watched it, and I loved it. It was awesome. I'd never seen any of this guy's movie. I forget who is the director of this? Guy Ritchie. That's right, Guy Ritchie. And yeah, never had a Steelbook before. Was able to get it at Big Lots. I saw on Reddit posts, people were like, yo, y'all gotta check in Big Lots. because they have really cheap, Blu-ray selections, and sometimes steelbooks and other things like that, or special editions, end up, on the rack of cheap Blu-rays. So I got a good deal on this. Good excuse to get my first steelbook. So those were my additions to my collection for the months of May and June. Let me know if you saw anything that really piqued your interest. Let me know what you think about that book of B movies and that Big Lebowski book. I'm really excited about getting more into those. Leave a comment, like and subscribe. Thank you for watching, and as always, happy collecting.